So today I want to talk about our new FX3. So we've had this camera for about, I don't know, 3 to 6 months now, and we've kind of been testing it on and off. We bought this little FX3 to replace our A7S3. This is also kind of like an upgrade for me. I wanted more of like a cinema camera. I wanted something that was like a little bit more robust, and I specifically wanted something with XLR inputs. So let's get into it. Like cool intro music, and then like, you'll have like some amazing cinematic things where I'll give you no footage, but you'll still have to make. I don't know how you're gonna do it. All right, so I think we should probably disassemble this first so that I can walk through pretty much each piece while I build it back up. So one of the really nice features of the FX3 is the fact that it has a little fan. This really helps with keeping temperatures really cool, especially if you're shooting in places like Florida or basically anywhere close to the equator. So another feature that I really like about the FX3 is when it's recording, there's actually a little light that's on the top, that's on the back, and there is a little light on the front, but it's currently covered by my cage. Back in the day, I used to have to use a feature called emphasize when recording, and that used to put a line around the screen. So if you've got like an A7S3, you can still use that feature, and it's really useful for knowing when you're recording and when you're not recording. And honestly, switching from the A7S3 to the FX3, I really don't think there's too much of a difference in quality. However, I did notice that some of the colors seem a little bit different on the FX3. I think that that's because the processing line on this is a little bit different. Even though it uses the same hardware processor, I think that the cinema software processes color a little bit differently. I find the colors a little bit more pleasing when editing. Now, that may just me being biased because you have to pay a little bit more money for this camera, but I mean, it is really nice. The other really nice feature is this top handle. I know a lot of people, may not really have a purpose for XLR mics, but if you want to get into more professional audio, or you want to start bringing like a higher production value to your clients and stuff like that, definitely look at getting something like the XLR top handle. You'll also notice that I have added some small rig components to this just to make the handle a little bit longer. The normal handle, my hand just fits on it with this little, extension that they added. So, it's much easier to hold, much easier to get a better top grip, and when you're shooting, and you really want a steady hand. So, the more contact area that you can get with your hand, the much better that you can make this. The final benefit to this little handle is the fact that you can actually record in 24-bit audio, which is significantly higher quality. If you don't know, most of the Sony cameras record in 16-bit audio internally. So that's like, even if you plug in the nicest microphone into the side of the camera, you're only gonna get 16-bit audio out of it. So that's not a problem in most circumstances. That is kind of a limitation when you're trying to edit or modify the audio later or really clean it up. Those extra bits really help when, kind of trying to get some resolution out of the audio. Additionally, 24 bits also allows a significantly larger amount of dynamic range in the audio. So that's when you have sounds that are really quiet in the background or really loud in the foreground. You don't really have to adjust your audio as much. You can definitely keep all of that in range so that, if somebody starts screaming in your shot or then somebody starts talking quiet, 24-bit audio will definitely give you a bonus. The other benefit that I really like about this top handle is they give you a little extra jack there on the top. One of the things that I've used this for is like the lavalier mics. So the Video Go microphones, you can actually plug those into here, and then you can plug in, 2 of your XLR microphones, and that will allow you to kind of get that 4-channel audio. So that makes this camera quite capable. The other thing that I don't often see explained on this, and the other real benefit that I've had, is the fact that it has an auto leveling. In 2023, I'm really shocked that Sony hasn't added this into the base of most cameras. While I know having fixed audio really helps, keeping levels same, when I'm trying to kind of go out, run and gun or shoot, I really like the idea of having an auto leveling thing so that, if we go into a quiet room, somebody talking, it'll automatically boost the levels up in the recording. And then, if we go out into like a loud park, not everything's going to be blown out. Or if there's a lot of people talking, you're not just suddenly going to have your audio completely blown out and totally useless. This will automatically bring the levels down. If you're, probably better at sound than I am. You can go ahead and change this to, manual, and you can automatically adjust it, or, well, manually adjust it yourself. It also allows separate. So if you want to either link it, so you can have everything linked. So your inputs 1 and 2, you can have it linked together so that when you change the levels on one, it changes the levels on both. Or if you set it to auto, the level on one will also change the level on the other. You can separate them with manual, or you can have one auto, one manual, which is quite helpful. The other thing that you'll notice, and I'll tell you, I'm not sure I'm a super big fan about this, but it will let you turn the audio on and off for this handle. I've always been kind of concerned about that because I'm always concerned that I'm going to knock that, accidentally turning off the handle audio, and then I'll just have no audio on the device, or maybe just the onboard mics will turn on at that point, which that would be quite frustrating to me. So I may get some gaff tape or something like that and tape over it, which might help keep that from happening. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on top of the camera and screw this down. Also, I'm pretty sure like every YouTuber out there, like every camera guy out there has like a multi-tool. I'd highly recommend, this is one from Small Rig. I've seen this recommended by other people out there. I bought this a while back, and it's great for kind of tightening things down. This doesn't come off and it makes it pretty secure. There's another add-on that I have kind of, created with this top handle. I took one of these Hawk Lock auto mounts here. Here, I'll show the top little part here and how I modified this to work. But this is great for mounting things like monitors. But there's two little components. I'll link them down below. But I just want to show this little part here about how some people add this to the back. My problem is, you kind of have to, if you have the monitor mounted back here, you have to make sure that you put your hand, and it does work well, but then that might encourage you to push your camera out further away from your body, which kind of really affects the way that you balance your camera. When I originally bought this was like a NATO rail mount, and this little Hawk Lock thing connected to the top of the NATO rail mount. Now, it's not necessarily cheap to do this, but I went ahead and bought this little NATO mount thing that it came with, and I separated them. It's basically just a little screw that goes into the top here. It kind of barely fits. If you see, I'll link these two little components because there's like a handle extension here, which is one component. These don't come together. So there's just a little handle extension, and then there's this little like bump up piece, which adds a nice little cold shoe mount up top here, and then some standard threads. This is great for mounting any lavalier system that you have that can slide into a cold shoe, can mount up there. And then you can run the 3.5 millimeter jack right out the back and right into this little side piece here. And so that gives you a little bit of extra audio capability. So they give you little 3 screws on the edges of this. I just put a little screw through the top there, and then I mount this to the bottom. And then, you can go ahead and tighten this down. It does require a little bit of extra force to tighten this down. This does make it a really nice place to mount the monitor because it's kind of centrally located. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the Atomos monitor. I think if you're buying an FX3, you should probably price one of these in just for the matter of fact of having a little bit better monitoring. The screen on the back of the Sonys, they're okay. I think it's definitely usable for most average everyday shooting, especially run and gun. But if you want to get the higher quality out of your camera, especially because you can shoot in RAW if you buy one of these Atomos Ninjas, I think you only need the Atomos Ninja 5. If you buy the 5 Plus, you're a little bit more future-proofed, but the Atomos Ninja 5 is all that's needed for the FX3. Allows you to record in 12-bit, so you can get a little bit higher quality out of the camera. You can also record in RAW, ProRes RAW, which is really nice unless you use DaVinci Resolve, which, we use DaVinci Resolve. One of the big problems with using that RAW format in DaVinci Resolve is that we have to convert it. So that's kind of a little bit of a painful step for us. I found a program called Edit Ready that does help change it into like ProRes, 4444. It's really nice. You get almost RAW quality with it. You definitely get that 12-bit quality that you're looking for. But, it is definitely an extra step, and it's really only useful in the most extreme cases. The last thing that I bought for the Ninja is this little thing called a lunchbox, which is really nice. This is a little bit more technical. I think for most people, I would probably just recommend going ahead and buying the Angel Bird, micro SSDs that kind of just slide in here. They work great. You can also use the adapter that came with it and go ahead and buy, SSDs online. But this, Lunchbox is great. You can buy, there's like a Samsung, little small Samsung like M5 drive that you can buy. You can take it apart and then fit it in here and mount it in here. This is pretty nice. The other side benefit of this is it actually blocks less of this fan, which I've noticed it kind of reduces the amount that fan comes on. If you're intending on shooting in warm climates, definitely take a look at that. It might keep things a little bit cooler. Oh, there is one thing that I did forget. You do have to get the little hot lock plates from Small Rig, which is really nice because these will mount like directly on, they're kind of like quick lock mounts. So you can go ahead and mount it and it just kind of comes on. As long as you make sure it's locked, it's nice. This thing's pretty adjustable and it kind of keeps everything balanced, especially if you have a lens on it, which is the next thing that I want to talk about. I think my favorite lens overall is the Sony FE 2.8 16 to 35 G Master lens. It's a full frame lens. It works absolutely great. Let me go ahead and put this on here. This is pretty much the most common range I use anyways. There is a 24 to 105 that I also keep in my bag for those longer range shots. And then for the really extreme stuff, I kind of bump it up to the 200 to 600. And it's quite a commitment to carry it around, so I really only carry that if I know that we're going to be shooting nature. This is what I keep on here probably 90% of the time. The last piece of kit that really makes this great is the Atomos HDMI cables. These are great. They're high quality, at least in my opinion, because they're made out of metal. So the next thing that I want to talk about is microphones. Now, you can shoot with almost any XLR microphone on this. The one thing that I have noticed is this uses a Sony mount for microphones. So if you're using like a Sony microphone, it should fit kind of exactly in there. It doesn't really need an adapter. It's got nice little rubber feet here that kind of keep it centered. It's not a problem. I have found that most of, at least my microphones and most of the high quality microphones, you do need kind of like a rubber gasket. I did buy one of these on Amazon. They're not the greatest, but they do let you mount, things that are other than Sony microphones. I have a Sennheiser mic that I really like to use, and that's what I use for shotgun mics. But there is another microphone that I really like to use, and that is the Audio-Technica BP425, which is a very nice stereo microphone. One thing I should note is I did have to get this cable custom. Now there is a place at B&H Photo that will make these custom 5-pin to 3-pin adapters. They can make them pretty short, which is really nice because the one that it comes with is like 10 feet long. So, as I said, you kind of do have to, put that ring around it. And at that point in time, you can kind of close this up. So the latch isn't that great, but this does kind of let you have that stereo microphone that's on the camera. You can capture things that are happening to the left and the right of camera, which is absolutely great. The other nice thing is this records right into the Atomos. But as you can see, there is one kind of limitation, which is, how big your batteries are. This is why I use the 750s and not the, larger batteries because, it limits the amount that I can tilt the monitor back. And this is pretty much most of the setup that I use. The one thing that I have added to this setup recently is this Recon kit from Polar Pro. I have used, matte boxes in the past, and I will tell you, they're kind of painful to use, especially if you're not willing to kind of sit down and take shots or, really set them up so that the wind isn't going to vibrate them or really tighten them down. They also get you a lot more looks. So if that's what you're intending to do, then you're good. But if you're in a crowded area and you've got a giant matte box on the front of your camera, that might be more attention than you really want. So not something that I can recommend. But this is great kit because, it's basically a large ND filter. This is a really nice kit because it's a 3 to 6 ND. It actually goes a little bit beyond that, especially if you want to push it. But for wider cameras, for wider lenses, it does start to cause a problem. I pretty much use it in the 3 to 6 range. It also comes with a no ND kit, which, you just basically screw it on and it's just a mount for mounting the matte box. So this is pretty much the most built up it will be. So, I run around with, that as the camera for the most built up setup, but I want to show a little reduced setup. And this is really great for, when you're trying to shoot just getting less attention on yourself. And, you know, so I just take this top handle off. I might leave this top handle back in the hotel room, you know, and I add this little Sony, it's like a hot shoes, like EC10, like 10B or something. I don't know, they come up with crazy numbers for this. They're basically serial numbers, but this is basically one of those digital to analog mics. If you turn it to digital, basically the microphone does all of the work and converts everything to digital and communicates to the camera in a digital fashion. It also requires no extra batteries, which is great. It also has an adjustable polar pattern, so you can do omni, like cardioid and super cardioid. You can also attenuate this. And then my favorite feature, like I mentioned before, the fact that you have an auto leveling function here, which is absolutely great for most run and gun shooting. I'll go ahead and slip that on here and tighten it down, and that makes this much smaller. I typically get rid of the matte box in that scenario as well. That matte box often draws a lot of attention, and you're kind of left with something that looks more like a regular camera with a cute little fuzzy thing on top. You know, you still got your ND filters. You're still basically recording, you know, a cinema camera, and you know, you can record a lot like this, and you're basically getting the same quality out of the camera, except 16-bit audio, which honestly, for most cases and YouTube, it doesn't really matter. One of the things that I think that I forgot to mention was the tilta cage. Now, this is one of my favorite cages, especially because it's adjustable. So, you know, you can unscrew the bottom here and take off this little side handle if you want. The other thing is it's a basic Arca Swiss plate on the bottom, which is really nice because you can slide it into almost any Arca Swiss tripod as long as it accepts like horizontal plates, which is great because the Peak Design tripod, once you take out those little 2 screws, you can just slide this in and you have a fully usable tripod combination plate that you don't need to take on and off of your camera. You know, the FX3 is really a great camera. It's definitely one of my favorites. It really lines up quite well with the way that I use it. The ergonomics are really great, especially because the grip is a little bit deeper. You know, the one thing that you do have to get used to is the fact that it does not have an eyepiece on top here. If that is something that you use often, you know, the little optical eyepiece that you can put your eye up to, this is definitely not the camera for you. Go ahead and just get the A7S III. I had that. I thought that was something that it was gonna, you know, wasn't gonna bother me. When I first switched to this, it actually did bother me for a little bit because I was like, oh, I use that more than I remember. It's now Netflix approved, which is absolutely incredible to have a camera that is this handheld and this affordable be Netflix approved. So some of your favorite series that you watch on Netflix are going to be shot on a camera just like this. So highly recommend it. I think that's it for now. If you have any questions about this, go ahead and put them in the comments below. I'll try to give you my experience for it, or at least my opinion on it. If you like our stuff, please subscribe. Hopefully that can kind of keep you up to date. We don't do a lot of these technical videos, but if you do want to see more, feel free to comment that down below as well. Otherwise, if you really don't like this video, very sorry. We don't do that many. If you really like our travel videos, they will be coming back soon. Promise to do some travel video stuff in May. All right, that's it.